Welcome to the Game Theory Podcast, the best podcast ever to be made. Welcome. Hey, David, what's up?
Not much. I just adjusting to the new world that we live in now.
Do you mean the one where the Nintendo original is now tiny and you can buy it?
Yes, this is the worst thing that happened this week for me personally. Was not being able to order one when Amazon
that was it
crashed
for the whole week.
Yeah, otherwise it's been a pretty great week for freedom and democracy. But that one thing.
Damn, yeah, that's really holding us back. It's true.
Yeah, it's one thing keeping America from being great again is not getting enough Nintendo classics.
I don't feel like you put your thumb on it heavy enough. What do you mean? Exactly.
Exactly what I said. I feel like I'm being pretty subtle, but this is historians will look back on this week as the worst week in American history, and it's going to be because of the Amazon crashing when I tried to order my Nintendo Classic.
So you don't think anything else will trump it?
Oh, nice. Nicely done.
Yeah, I went ahead and went full tilt there. Yes, that is really, just the worst thing to ever happen in America. But so you can't get it right now.
No. In fact, Amazon gave me a heads up and said, "Hey, on Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific time, guess what? There's going to be a limited supply of Nintendo Classics available to order, and you yourself can get one, but you got to hurry because it's very limited, and we anticipate not having enough for everyone." And knowing Nintendo's history of dropping the ball on this sort of thing, like from the Wii and the 3DS and every other time they've come out with something, it's so much that Rick and Morty made a joke about it. Remember? Oh, they're the limited edition Zelda 3DSs, and we can flip these babies for like $400.
Yeah.
So I wasn't optimistic, but at 3 p.m. my classes got out, and that's 2 p.m. for Pacific, and I started constantly refreshing the page, and oh man, the page kept crashing. It would let me order one and then take me to an empty cart, and I was like, "What is happening?" I was on my app and the computer at the same time trying to order this
Amazon servers.
Yeah, they crashed Amazon servers. Because apparently they weren't just giving me a heads up; they gave everyone in the world a heads up on this thing, and they all try to log in and buy one at the same time. And if you go online to Amazon right now, you're gonna see there's like 2,000 reviews of the Nintendo Classic, and they're all like 1-star reviews. They've got nothing to do with the system; it's just about the horrible experience of trying to order one off of Amazon.
That is insane.
So, yeah, that was a little frustrating. The thing is, it was just an impulse buy, right? I don't even really want to play it that bad. It's just a nostalgia thing. I was like, oh, it's an adorable little Nintendo, and it's got some games. Some of them are fun, and some of them aren't. I think I'd like to play that. And then it just became a matter of, fuck you, refresh. Like, the fact that it wouldn't sell me one made me that much more wanting to buy one. Because I'm easily manipulated by market factors.
Two cognitive biases or programming combined. One is scarcity, right, which is terrifying in and of itself. But then second of all, it's like it's like a wolf whenever a rabbit tries to run away from it. They just stare at each other from across a field, and they're just looking at each other. But then the rabbit tries to run, and it's like, oh, it's fuck you, and it just goes.
Yeah. When you were easily available, I was mulling it over whether I wanted to eat that rabbit. But fuck you if you're gonna run away. I'm definitely.
You gotta run away. No, I get to choose if I eat you or not.
Yep, that was me. And yeah, I was on my phone pressing order and getting an error message, and on the internet pressing order and it's taking me to an empty checkout, and I was like, oh, fuck you, I'm definitely gonna buy it now.
That really is the worst thing that ever could happen this week. That sucks, dude. Sorry. Yeah. So this topic of this episode came about because a user pasted. What is wrong with me today? I've been messing my words.
Copied and pasted.
Yeah, that's how my grandma talks about it. She's like, I went on the internet and then I opened up a browser and then I clicked on the little on the link and I typed in www.walmart.google.com and then I hit enter and then I went to the Google bar and typed in Walmart stores on the internet and I hit send. I was like, dude, just say you went to Walmart online. What the hell? Anyway, wait, what did it have to do with me messing up my words?
I don't know.
Nothing. Anyway,
a listener on our Facebook page posted an article called "Can You Get PTSD from a Virtual Experience?" And you began furiously typing answers to that question. And then you realize, hey, why don't we just do this as an episode? Because it's more fun to hear you rant in person, I think.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. Yeah, and this one's not so much a rant. Like when you say furiously, that's more the pace in which I was writing because I was
Yeah, there
like,
was no anger, but you were churning out words. Your words
there's
per minute
something.
count was up.
Well, there's something like really intriguing about that to me, and I did have a conversation like this with my very first professor, who he is. This is I shat all over his ideas, so he didn't much like that. But he was wondering if you could get PTSD from a chemically induced reality.
So like
So it's a
a
similar
bad
question.
trip.
Exactly, bad LSD trip. And I was like, and I argued no, and he argued yes, and then we argued for like 45 minutes. But as is, for some reason, this seems to happen. No, I'm not going to go into that. That sounds like I'm bragging. But anyway, okay. So here's my stance on the topic. So first let me say I understand the common ground. Like I am the scariest of scary bitches when I play video games. If I play a scary video game, I don't even want to talk about it. Like I am just, when I was playing, I think it was Thief even. It's not even that scary, but there are times when you're sneaking around and you're looking, and like as soon as you look around the corner, that's when the guard is walking into you, you know? And I was in a dark room so that, you know, because it's a game based on light and listening, right? So I was like, oh, turn off all the lights. And then I was like, now really put my headphones in, turn it way up so I could hear footsteps. Because you have to be able to hear footsteps from like doors or like corridors away, right? And to be very soft, you're like, oh, he's over there. This gives me just enough time to grab this thing and get out, you know? So I'm listening. It's super loud. And then I lean around the corner. This is not a scary game, folks, but I lean around the corner. And just as I do it, because I'm like, and I can hear myself, I actually hold my breath while I'm doing it. I'm like, and I lean around the corner, and he goes, "Are you?" And because I have an English accent, and when they see you, they exclaim. And I literally, and I'm not kidding, I ripped my mouse out of my computer and threw it behind me all the way back through the dorm room. And I unplugged my keyboard similarly, and I fell back on my chair. I was that scared. Like for some reason, games I just get so twitchy and scared about in general. But so I understand the notion. I understand that you can experience fear, even intense fear, inside of video games. And so the theory, I think, that people are thinking, well, I don't know, can you articulate it? I don't want to influence it too much.
Oh, from the article itself?
Or just from you, from why people have asked this question before. Like, how is it that you think you could get PTSD from? I just want to give it a fair shake, is all I'm saying.
Well, I think one way that people might be thinking of is like an online game like World of Warcraft or Second Life, where you just get fucking bullied and tormented like you would in any social media sphere, right? And then they're like, oh, that might trigger them if they log in. They might remember that time that they were just tormented by these other players, by these other humans. As far as like in a one-player game, I don't know. Maybe they're talking about games could get so realistic, like maybe with the VR, with the PlayStation VR, the Oculus Rift, that we start to forget what is reality and what isn't, and we just treat the scary things in the game as if they were real. Our bodies react the same way.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's kind of my understanding of how that could come about. Like the PTSD from being bullied, that's you can't get PTSD from being bullied. So I don't really think it has to be an intense moment of fear and terror. So I mean, if you were bullied with like a knife or something that is going to give you imminent harm or terror, something like terrifying, like if you saw Jason walk into your bedroom, that might be something that might trigger PTSD or give you PTSD. Maybe a lot of people have resilience to it. It's actually more common to have resilience against it than not. So it's actually pretty rare to get PTSD, even in terrifying moments. But some of the things, and so I get it, like if you're playing a video game and Jason walks into your room in a video game, I'll focus on that because the social setting thing, that doesn't even qualify even in normal situations. But yeah, so like with the way that VR can happen, oh man, there's this awesome, have you seen Black Mirror?
No.
Okay, it's on Netflix. I think it's Netflix produced, but it's kind of, I hear that it was based off of Twilight Zone. I don't know about the truth of that, or made by the same people. Somehow it's influenced by them. I'm not sure, but
so the Twilight Zone kind of way of saying, imagine, consider, if you will, this scenario, and then let's watch it play out.
Yeah, well, it's basically exactly like that. So it'll just be like, okay, somebody, I won't use a real example, I don't want to spoil it, but it'll be like, what happens if you lived in a reality where aliens were the leaders and they made you drink a certain kind of liquid every time, and then they play within that area, right? They make some story about someone discovering that, you know, they're drinking this liquid and it looks like water, but it's mined. I don't know. I'm totally making this up, but you get my idea. And so throughout the episode, you as the viewer get to learn more and more. You're introduced to the environment. You accept that immediately. You're like, okay, cool. Suspend disbelief. This is a zombie show or whatever, or this is a blank show. And then they pull you through it. Sometimes you just experience like what it's like to live in there, but for the most part, there's like some kind of weird, you know, twist or some kind of explanation or some discovery or, you know, that kind of thing. But one of them was about this is really cool because it could be true, that there's a software developer, and he's kind of like Nintendo, basically. It looked like a Nintendo. It's a Japanese guy. And wait, maybe I shouldn't talk about this, but no, I'll just talk about the premise. I won't tell you what happens, but they developed this new system, and it's basically VR, but super VR. They implant a little chip in the base of your skull that can tap into your central nervous system and can influence, you know, I guess can affect your smelling and seeing and stuff too. Not really how that works, but that's fine. And then you put on this visor over your eyes, and you get to play video games that way. And suddenly, you know, it teleports the actor into the real zone. He's like, "Whoa, cool!" And they said, "Yeah, now we get to influence your video game like in a real time, almost like a DM, right?" And he's like, "But actually, like we played with that for a long time, but now we're testing this AI-driven thing, so it's going to react kind of like, you know, some of these scary games are doing, where Twitch can influence them." That was one of them. Another one is it's based off of or like the director on Left 4 Dead 2. They call it the director. It's the AI makes sure that there's a certain pacing to the game. So you haven't seen zombies in a while, let's do that. Or you just saw a horde, let's really calm it down. So it's an AI that drives your horror experience. So they tried that inside the VR machine. And that's the setting, and that's the outset. So in a situation like that, I could see that, you know, I mean, you're basically there, and you're, you know, something terrible. Let's say it's a scary game, and something terrible happens to you. I could see how that could, you know, be very frightful. But so I'm arguing for the position right now as much as
would you then, because you said you have to actually be afraid for your life to get PTSD. That's why bullying wouldn't trigger it. So would you then have to just have a break, like a break with reality, to be afraid for your life in a game, or just really good VR?
Yeah, that's my first. Like, I kind of have three reasons why I'm not, or three reasons that are unique to real life situations like PTSD, and that no matter how realistic of the video game, I don't think they achieve these. And one of them is, reality. I don't think that, like, you can suspend disbelief. Like, even in a movie, like sometimes, you know, I'm watching it so intensely, I kind of lose sense of who I am. It sounds stupid, but you know what I mean? Like, you're actually watching the movie, and you may be like folding laundry and you just stopped, you know, because you're just staring at the screen, especially in an intense moment. You've become so ingrained with that media that you kind of forgot yourself for a minute. You forgot you were a person. It sounds silly, but it's just our kind of empathetic link kicking in, and we're like, oh man, what's he gonna do? And you're watching it, you're watching it. Pretty soon, you're not actively consuming it. You're passively, because you're just like, you're not trying to watch the TV. You're just watching the TV. So I can understand that situations like that in a video game might happen. Like, if you're playing, you're like, oh man, look, I'm in the game. Look at me. Oh wow, like I'm touching stuff. It feels real. Oh, I smell, you know, let's say you're in a kitchen. I smell cookies. Oh, you know, it feels a little cold on my feet. This is cool. And there may be moments, if you're in long enough, that you just sort of feel like you're not thinking about it as a game. I get that.
Yeah, that's one of the themes of Sword Art Online in the first season. Is a lot of players just were experiencing PTSD because they were actually in a world where they could die, so like their lives were in jeopardy again. So even though they were in a game, they were still being traumatized.
Yeah, exactly, because the threat has to be real, right? So, and not it has to be to your person or your character. For example, like let's say somebody, you know, one example, and this is pretty terrible, but all trauma is, but, you know, let's say somebody jumped out of the bushes and, like, jizzed on you or something, you know, or like exposed themselves to you, but something really bad. Or you saw someone else, like a car wreck, and then you saw somebody fall out and their head fall off or something. Like that. That's not to your person, but it's terrifying and horrifying. But in a video game, the problem is here's what happens with trauma or something terrifying, is we try to escape it. And there's different ways to do that. You can escape it through your body. That's the first notion, right? Like, hey, let me get the fuck out of here. But another one is, and you may see this in things like, well, PTSD, what they used to call shell shock, or in Prisoners of War or something. They just sort of zone out. Or, like victims of child abuse or something. They'll like zone out, and, you see like the famous example, someone just rocking themselves. That's kind of self-soothing, but sometimes they put themselves somewhere else. Their mind kind of, I hate using the term disassociate because it has too much bad baggage.
Context.
Yeah, from Freud, but you do kind of disassociate. You stop associating what you're seeing to you as a narrative, you as a person. So that is another way to do it. So it's called cognitive avoidance. So you can behaviorally avoid, which means get the fuck out of there. Like if Jason walks in my room, I'm jumping through that window. Or you can cognitively avoid. Let's say he comes up to me and he holds me and he's just standing there holding me, and I never know when he's going to stab me, but he's going to. At some point, your central nervous system has I'll call it a fire alarm system. So like if the fire goes off in a building, those little sprinklers pop off eventually, right?
Right.
So you can't stay terrified forever. And this is the theory behind, or not the theory, this is the reason, I guess, behind why prolonged exposure for PTSD works is and specific phobia. You show them the thing, and then you do not allow them to escape, and eventually their heart rate comes down, their subjective units of distress, we call them SUDs, come down. They eventually go, oh, and then they begin to have a new contingency, a new relationship with that stimulus, whether it's a spider or whatever it is. That they're like, oh, wait, this isn't a real threat to me. This isn't a gorilla in the bushes. This, whatever it is. So it has to be real, and it has to be inescapable. That's my second one. So it's like if a video game, I'm terrified of a video game, I'm going to try to run away in the game. But there's a point where if I'm actually being terrified, I'm just going to take the VR headset off, and I'm going to be like, holy shit, I'm not playing that game anymore, which is what happens with 99% of scary games for me. I don't finish them because I'm just like, fuck this noise. It's escapable. So that's the difference. And the last part is unable to reinterpret. So this is kind of the one that I argued with my professor about for a while. He was like, no, this doesn't have to be that way. If you were genuinely terrified, you could have nightmares. I'm like, nightmares, yes, that's one criterion of the many for PTSD. But
yeah, I've got by that logic, I've got PTSD from serving a Mormon mission because I routinely have nightmares that I'm back in it.
Yeah. And I always have weird nightmares. Like, I cannot remember my one from this morning. I need to write these down because I woke up with two really weird ones, and I was like, what the hell? But yeah, exactly. Nightmares is one symptom, but is not indicative of PTSD. So he argued that during a bad LSD trip, like later, you could wake up with sweats and stuff. And I was like, sure, yeah. I mean, yeah. I do that with fake stuff. I woke up thinking that I was being chased by my next door neighbor and he had a knife. That's never happened to me, but I was definitely sweating when I woke up and I shouted. It happens. But here's the difference. I'm not having flashbacks of that, dream.
Right.
And the reason why is because I'm able to reinterpret it as a dream. Like if I think about the thing, like there's one dream where it's terrible. My wife picked up a knife jokingly and she's like, ree, ree. And I'm like, yeah. And then she kept coming towards me and I'm like, whoa, dude. And then she kept coming and I was like, dude, stop. And then she like stabbed me once and I was like, I'm holding her arm back. And then she gets this crazy look in her eyes, because your brain does that thing in your dreams where you go, I wonder if this is happening. And then it does. And that's what I did. I was like, I wonder if she's serious. And then she was. And she's like trying to stab me. And eventually I had to like kick her and then punch her and throw her down. And then I felt bad about it. But that moment of like her trying to stab me was terrifying. And when I think about it, I'm like, oh man, that was scary. But it's not like war where I'm like, oh, that was a terrible thing that happened. So I'm able to reinterpret it, just like a drug trip or a video game. I'm like, it's a video game. Jason isn't real. He's not going to really come in my room. Well, fingers crossed. My door's open behind me right now. I couldn't see him. All right, I'm going to do the turnaround look thing. I have to. Yeah, he's not there.
Right. Close one, though.
Well, that was super close. If I hadn't looked, he would have been there for sure. No, I'm kidding. To reinterpret, right? I'm able to say like, oh, that was just a horror. It's like a horror movie, right? No matter how much you get into it, afterwards, if you think about that scary scene, you can go, oh, those are just actors. Those aren't real people, right? Like, you can reinterpret it, so it doesn't cause you that repeated significant distress.
I think people get confused by emotions in PTSD because you can feel fear and you can feel sadness, right? Like we all shed a tear for Eris, right?
Yeah.
But PTSD is not an emotion. PTSD is how would you define PTSD in comparison to just like fear?
It's a maladaptive relationship with a fear stimuli. So it's a bad situation because of something that happened, and then you experience, because it's so terrible, you don't want to re-experience it, right? So immediately having it intrude into your brain, you cognitively avoid. You go no, 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 and you try to think of different things. Like some people say they immediately think of their kids, or they go no, 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 I don't want to think about it. They start pacing, or they call someone, or they do something to not re-experience it. But ironically, the only way to get rid of it, and as this is one of our highest treated things, we can get rid of this easily. Is to the point where many psychologists, and this just happened Friday, say, "Oh my God, I love trauma so much; it's so easy to cure." It's just simple, because the thing is, all you have to do is re-experience it a few times, and you're good. It's like how I was terrified of heights, and I still am. But on my first Spartan race, like climbing up a thing, one of the cargo nets up, and it's not even that high; it's probably like 30 feet. I was shaking so bad. The guy next to me was like, "Hey, you okay, man?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm super hardcore, bro." And I just like kept going. But now I got up on the last one during the last race, because I've done it so many times. I reinterpret that situation as not threatening, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I've done this before so many times. I got this. Same thing with the you have to do that with the thought too. You have to relive that thought and situations surrounding it, because fear has a strange ability to, we call it generalize, but it means like stain your hands like a beet would, right? Like anything it touches, it kind of attaches to, because fear is very important in keeping us alive as an organism. So, like, for example, I'm on the savannah. I go up and I'm walking up to this watering hole, and oof, I'm already on edge. I'm like, damn, this is where this kind of thing happens. I look around, and just like I get to the water's edge, a lion comes down, chases me, and I take off, and I get up a tree, or I do whatever I need to do, and I get safe. Not only am I going to avoid that water hole, I'm going to start avoiding the smells that I had around that area, the many things around that area, because it's going to save my life, maybe, because maybe that smells that leopard, or maybe that, or lioness, or whatever it was I said.
Right.
Maybe as I was walking up, and maybe that dirt road that I was walking up, it could generalize to that and say, I'm just not going to stick away from dirt roads too.
Yeah,
So
it could be lions that use dirt roads a lot.
Exactly, could be, and it's better safe than sorry, as far as evolutionary speaking. So that's how that sort of thing spreads. So you have to exposure therapy to each one of those things. But the reason why they're so terrifying is because they can't be reinterpreted as not real. It's like, oh no, that dude definitely raped me, or that person definitely tried to kill me, or I definitely saw that dead body of my parent, or whatever it is. I can't, I can't undo it, and it's not fake. I wish it was, So those are kind of the three principles of why I argue that no simulated experience could ever give you PTSD, while they can still be terrifying in the moment.
So without a complete break from like being able to separate reality from fantasy, you're pretty safe playing video games from developing PTSD. You can wet your pants and shit your pants because you're so scared, but that's not gonna be a PTSD triggering event.
Yeah, like if there was a like in Sword Art Online, this is a really cool thing that you brought up. If we did get stuck in there, and we really did die, if we got hurt severely, when we lost enough HP, and let's say there's a glitch where that happened for a minute, and for that minute my life really was in danger, and then it glitched back and you and I got out, you could get PTSD, because if your life is really in danger or imminent threat or harm, then yeah, like the Matrix, for example, every one of those people in the Matrix believes their life is on the line, even though they're just a brain in a vat, basically. They can get it because they can't reinterpret it. They can't escape. They think it's real, and they can't reinterpret it as unharmful. So,
well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
when you were talking about how your brain just can't constantly, like, there's only so much fear that your brain can produce. Anger's the same way, right? Because I was reading about the Hulk, and his anger makes him stronger, and he has potentially unlimited strength, because as long as he can keep getting angry, then he'll keep getting stronger. And so then they're like, well, what happens if your brain, like, use up all the anger hormones or whatever? That I'm clearly not a neuroscientist, but what happens if you run out of anger juice? And like, oh, well, he's got that healing factor. So that's their explanation, is like his healing factor can recover his brain enough so he can actually have unlimited rage.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty interesting stuff.
Indeed. So yeah, good article. Interesting stuff, kind of right up our alley. From that, the original article was from Popular Science, and it was called "Can You Get PTSD from a Virtual Experience?" Short answer: no, but online worlds can really stress you out. By Daniel Engber.
I heard something funny on the Joe Rogan podcast. He goes, anytime you hear a sensational headline with a question mark, it can always be answered with no.
Yeah. Are teenagers going to be blah 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 blah? The answer may surprise you.
Yeah, exactly. Can you die from a nightmare or a panic attack? And I'm always like, no. And then it almost always says no. So I'm sure there are questions that say yes, but that was just a very funny thing that he mentioned.
Well, good. We a little bit of listener feedback while we're talking about interacting with the fans. I don't know if you saw, we got a new listener posting on our Game Theory Facebook page, and his name's Christian, and he says, I recently started listening to your podcast through Stitcher, but can't find the way to leave a comment and rating there for some reason. So I decided to leave my comment here. I'm enjoying your podcast discussions very much. You guys do in-depth analysis on a lot of things that most people don't even think to look at or comment on. I'm a starting indie game developer, and by listening to your podcast, I feel that I'm learning a lot. Thank you for doing this. I'm hooked, and I'm starting to go through the backlog of your previous recordings. By the way, the Chrono Trigger ones are amazing. Thanks.
Nice. Well, cool. I'm glad you like that.
Yeah, that was a fun. We got to do another book club sometime. That was a fun thing to do.
That was. The summer. Hey, the NES Tiny is coming out. That's what I call
it. No, that's adorable. That's an adorable name. But yeah, thanks for the comment, and hopefully, as an indie gamer developer, like my favorite episodes are the ones where we kind of like break apart why we enjoy games, like what actually makes them fun, instead of just being like, oh, that game was super fun. And so hopefully those are helpful to you as from a design perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I think, that's weird. We do listen to or we do attract a lot of developers, and I think that maybe why, because they have a cool profession where they get to do this all the time, and so maybe we can offer some perspective at some point, or hopefully many points where they're like, oh, hey, that's a cool way to think about that. So yeah, that's cool. I love that. I think game development is really rad. Definitely something we considered doing before we got lost in the rest of life.
Right. Exactly. It's what we all dreamt of doing before we gave up on our dreams. So keep living the dreams, guys. Do it for those of us who didn't make it.
Cool. All right. I guess that's it. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Right.
We will.
Fairly short episode, but we do have one in the banks that we're looking to do next time.
Yes.
So, should be a good episode. I think it'll be a fun one at least, and topical.
Exactly. So until then, keep on gaming and keep on making games.
Yeah, grab your games. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. I almost brought it back to the beginning. All right. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.